and welcome to Matt's B-Movie Reviews, a show that looks at cult films that may have escaped your radar. And this week I'm collabing with a fellow creator, Brian Gatto, of Horror Show Entertainment fame. Brian also reviews a lot of movies similar to myself, B-movies and cult cinema. So I just figured, why the hell not collaborate? So get yourself ready for this week's review by Brian. If you want to see my review of the same movie, go over to Horror Show Entertainment and click the video. And why not subscribe while you're there, because he looks at a ton of horror movies. So all I'll say is, enjoy.
John Dobson went a fishing once, fishing in the weir. He caught a fish up on his hook, he thought looked mighty queer. Now what the kind of fish it was, John Dobson couldn't tell. But he didn't like the look of it, so he threw it down a well.
The Lair of the White Worm. It's a comedy horror from 1988 that was directed by Ken Russell, rest in peace, of Gothic and Altered States fame. The plot. During an archaeological dig in one Angus Flint's, played by Peter Capaldi, own backyard, the discovery of an unusual skull is made. Later on that night, he meets up with Lord James D'Ampton, played by Hugh Grant, and his wife, Eve Trent, played by Catherine Oxenberg from Sharktopus vs. Werewolf. And the trio, along with Angus's wife, who is also Eve's sister, named Mary, played by Sammy Davis, begins to investigate the strange happenings revolving around the skull. It isn't until Lady Sylvia Marsh, played by Amanda Donahue, begins her insidious tasks to sacrifice to her worm god that the real weird shit begins. It definitely has got a monstrous worm head in it, and the vampire makeup and fangs are quite creepy. But other than those two aspects, how can one really classify this as a horror film with comedic elements? This is more of a comedy of sorts with some horror elements. That is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just not what I expected. Let us not look at this objectively. This film does have good characters, decent performances, pretty good effects, and some quite disturbing and even blasphemous imagery to showcase a good shock value. I liked the characters, but don't understand why this is more comedy than horror. We'll have to delve in a bit deeper into that category to find that out. There are some very serious scenes that are not meant to be played for laughs, and yet somehow I felt they were. I don't know, maybe I'm not getting the British humor. However, all the humor I sensed was more awkward than anything. There are some scenes strictly driven by dialogue, and there isn't a single funny thing about them. In fact, they're played dead serious and even to a poetic degree. Some of the acting can be a bit hammy at times, and it's kind of detracted from a certain scene. This is prevalent mostly from the female cast, unfortunately. There are some messed up scenes in this movie, though, big time. With its phallic symbolism galore, it's portrayed in such a goofy and off-color manner that I was quite shocked by just how much of the hilarity could be witnessed in an unusually artsy gag. The gore, the effects, with its phallic imagery intact, we also see blasphemous sequences where rape and crucifixion are quite present. With a budget of $2.5 million, it really went to town with everything. While this isn't old-school Peter Jackson material, there are still some gnarly things in this movie. We get a mutilated ferret, a quick yet quease-inducing head impalement, some bloody munching, and an awesome scene where an individual is chopped in two. The effects are great, yet sometimes a bit corny. The motion picture soundtrack. Nothing else too noteworthy, I'm afraid, besides the theme song for The Worm, which is just hilarious. It is a cool old-time story that was actually based off a written work of Bram Stoker's. Yeah, that's right, there's a book by Bram Stoker that was made into a film as ludicrous as this. While it is not bad and it is still passing the decent mark, it still has some issues. The humor is a bit off in this comedy horror, but that's not terrible in the slightest. I honestly think it's just tonally confused. It's did poorly at the box office, unfortunately, which stinks because I think it's a film with a great amount of charm that is as big as its ambition. Overall, I give The Lair of the White Worm a 3 out of 5. I'm Brian Gatto, host of Horror Show Entertainment. Make sure to like my Facebook page in the description below, leave comments, and subscribe.